Welcome to the Maine Department of Education Child Nutrition Services. Today we are going to talk about budgeting in the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program. I will be referring to it as FFVP for the remainder of this video. First, we are going to review the FFVP funding basics. Each school gets a contract with specific funding amounts that must be spent throughout the year. Funds are split into two separate allocations due to USDA's fiscal calendar. The first pot of money is for July through September expenses, and the second pot of money is used for the remainder of the school year, or October through June. So how do we translate this into budgeting? Let's say, for example, School A has 220 students and was awarded $11,000. 10% goes to July through September allocation, which equals 1,100. The remainder goes to October through June allocation, which equals 9,900. Keep in mind that a maximum of 10% of the total grant can be used towards administrative expenses. This includes large equipment purchases, such as refrigerators and coolers. It can also include administrative labor for the staff person coordinating the program. This includes time spent on filing claims, planning menus, and ordering. Also, keep in mind that not all admin money has to be spent. The majority of funds should be used to purchase fruits and vegetables. Using the same numbers as the previous example, School A is awarded $11,000 for the year. We change the percentage to a decimal and get 11,000 times 0.10 equals 1,100. This school can use 1,100 towards administrative expenses for the year. Notice that this is the same number we calculated for the September allocation. When developing a budget, you should ask yourself the following questions. Which method makes the most sense for my school or schools? Which method will be the easiest to use? Which method will track spending the best? Think of these questions as we go through three different methods of budgeting in the FFVP. Now let's look at Method 1, Monthly Budget. There are two different ways to calculate your monthly budget. The first way, and easiest way, is to take our October through June allocation, then divide by 9 months to equal our monthly budget. The second method is to take our October through June allocation, divide by the number of students, then divide by the number of serving days from October 1st through June 30th to get a per serving cost. Confused yet? Let's look at a real-life example. School A has 220 students and 9,900 funds to use for October through June. They serve 5 days per week. So how do we know how much funds should be spent per month? Using the first method, we take our October through June allocation and divide by roughly 9 months to give us $1,100 per month. The second method involves a little more math. First, we need to determine the per serving cost. So we take 9,900, divide by 220 students, and then divide by 180 days, which gives us 0.25 cents per serving, assuming that this school serves 5 days per week. Next, if we take the per serving cost and multiply by 20 serving days, and then multiply by 220 students, that equals 1,100 to budget monthly. As you can see, there are two ways to get the same figure. The per serving cost may be helpful to calculate how much product to order. The second method is using a weekly budget. This may be helpful for those of you who do the majority of your purchasing on a weekly basis. First, you take your October through June allocation and then divide by the number of weeks in the school year to give you your weekly budget. Here is an example of Method 2. Again, we are using School A, which has 45 weeks in the school year and 9,900 funds for October through June. So we take 9,900 and divide by 45 weeks to give us $220 per week to spend on fruits and vegetables. The third and final method we will discuss is creating a spreadsheet. First, you want to create a spreadsheet on Microsoft Excel. Listed are some examples of what to include in your spreadsheet. However, it is up to each individual school to decide what information to include. Some important things to include are keeping operating costs separate from administrative costs, tracking the number of serving days, and having some way of calculating the remaining balance to budget for the rest of the year. Here is an example from Farrington Elementary School. There are separate columns for the month, number of days, and number of students served. You will also notice that operating costs and administrative costs are also separate. At the bottom of the page, they have listed their remaining balance. Keep in mind that the spreadsheet is optional and is another method you can choose to stay on track. Here are some tips on spreadsheets. Knowing a few basic formulas in Excel will make it easier to create a spreadsheet. There are also Microsoft Excel tutorials that can help you get started. It is good practice to save these spreadsheets so you can refer to them in the future. If your school does not have big enrollment shifts, the funding should be relatively the same each year, and therefore your budget may not vary as much. The total number of serving days for each month should stay relatively constant as well, unless you decide to serve more days per week. Now that you have seen examples of the 3 different methods, re-ask yourself the following questions. You may know which method would work best for you. Always keep in mind that the regulations for the FFVP expect schools to start serving at the beginning of the school year and continue through the end of the school year. Here are some budgeting tips. These calculations help ensure that you have sufficient funds to serve fresh fruits and vegetables throughout the entire school year. Also, remember that due to holidays, teacher workshops, and half days of school, the number of serving days can vary from month to month. Even if you plan to serve every school day, the number of days per month can vary from a low in December to a high in March. This may affect how much you want to allocate each month. Here are some other tips. Determine your portion size. For younger students, a quarter cup or half cup will likely be the maximum portion size for this age group to prevent waste. Next, balance high-cost fruits and vegetables with lower-cost ones. For an example, if you serve snack 3 times per week, plan to use apples and carrots, which are lower-cost items, and use the pomegranates, which are a higher-cost item, as a sample. This will help you to balance out your costs for the week. Lastly, serve 5 days per week to ensure funds are used timely. If you find that funds will not last until the end of the year, resort to lower cost items. Providing a snack 5 days per week is what is best for the students, even if their options are reduced. Here are some labor tips to keep in mind. If labor is high, try pre-packaged fruits and vegetables. Mondays and Fridays might be best so you can eliminate prep time and cleanup. Ask parent or student volunteers to help. Just make sure they are trained to handle fresh fruits and vegetables safely. Use your funds to hire someone to prepare and distribute fruits and vegetables. The money is there to help out with these labor roadblocks, so take advantage of the funds. In addition to the tips mentioned in this video, there are also some great resources for managing your budget. Child Nutrition has a reports page to track spending by the month. It is called FFVP by school year. I would highly suggest checking this monthly to ensure you are on track with spending. There is also a Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program Handbook, which has a great section on reimbursable costs, as well as other helpful information. Make sure you have the most updated version, which is December of 2010. Thank you for participating in this video. Helpful links will be provided in the video's description.